Hey, what's up everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast, where on this episode, I am going to respond to a bunch of questions that you guys have sent my way in response to not only the Ryan Buell episode, but plenty of other things. But before I do, I have what I think is a pretty exciting announcement to make, which is that as I've gotten stronger here and my recovery continues, I've definitely come to a place where I want to start looking at events to get back out there in the public to see you guys and to shake hands and thank you guys for supporting me. And I've begun not only looking at locations to host our own events, but also looking at some of the offers that I've received from different conferences and things that go on. Now, you guys know, historically speaking, I don't do a lot of conferences. And the main reason is, in the past, by the way, if you guys hear a bunch of clamoring behind me, I'm going to try to compress it out of the audio here, but there's some construction work going on that's really annoying, especially at this time of night. But anyways, like I was saying, when it comes to events, there's just a tribalism that kind of goes on at these things amongst like who's at what network and who's with what show, which I've always found to be not only annoying, but just, I think, idiotic. It doesn't help anything. And, years ago when I would go to a lot of these things, I just, found myself in all kinds of different situations where I would end up cross with people that I would never otherwise have any issue with. But these events, they just, man, they really do breed tribalism, or at least that was my experience. So that's actually why I started hosting my own events instead. But a lot of time has passed, and I've also heard a lot of very good things about a specific conference, which is the Warrens Con, which I believe the actual official name is the Warrens Seekers of the Supernatural Conference. In which they reached out to me a couple years ago to attend, and it didn't work out for scheduling reasons, basically. I was filming at that time, and they reached out to me again this year. And I can announce that the contract is signed, the plane tickets are bought, and I will be appearing at the Warrens Con in Gettysburg on September 27th through the 29th, in which for the first time in well over a decade, I will be reuniting on stage with Mr. Ryan Buell, which we're going to be talking about our investigations with Lorraine, including American Ghost Hunter, Paranormal State, just our time working together. We'll be doing a Q&A. It should be really exciting. I know from your comments in the the comments section off of Ryan's his podcast interview that this is something that people really wanted to see as well, which is really heartwarming to me. Because again, I just didn't know if this would ever be possible again. So the fact that it's on the books now is very, very exciting. And for those of you that are interested in Harbingers, there will be a big presentation about Harbingers as well. So it's going to be an amazing weekend. Once again, September 27th through the 29th, the Warrens Seekers of the Supernatural Conference, Gettysburg, PA. If you want to get tickets to that event right now, there's general admission tickets, there's VIP tickets. I will leave the link in the description box below. Come out and enjoy the festivities. It's going to be awesome. Also, really quickly, back in 2017, I was approached by Hearst Digital Entertainment to produce a paranormal show for that Verizon Go 90 channel that was around for a while, that was putting out a lot of stuff. And they gave us a little bit of money to go out and shoot a scene to an original idea for a series. Well, when we had that opportunity, I was like, if I'm going to shoot something, I'm going to shoot something. So I stretched their budget and ended up making like a 24-minute actual episode of a show that was called Para-American Legend and Lore. And it was a pretty cool idea. It was kind of about telling the history of a town in an area, actually through the lore, the haunted lore of locations in that town. And it was a really cool way of doing it, the way we kind of set it up. We got really lucky at that time, and we were allowed to investigate a place called Quarters 1, which is on Arsenal Island in Rock Island, Illinois. It's a military base. And Quarters 1 is actually the second largest private residence owned by the government, with the first largest being the White House. So this is a pretty big property. And the history of it was incredible. The investigation was incredible. How we got access to the place is a pretty interesting story that I will share one day. Now, when I showed the episode to Hearst, they dug it, but they liked another idea as well that kind of came from Eli Roth's digital company. And they ended up kind of combining both of those ideas, and they actually came up with Ghosted, which they brought me on as an executive producer and a co-star. That's how that whole Ghosted thing kind of happened. But I've never showed anybody the Pan-American Legend and Lore, I guess pilot you can call it. And I came across it the other day, and it was fun. It was really cool, in which I've decided I'm going to post that on my Patreon, which here's a quick scene from this pilot episode, which again was a lot of fun to make. Check this out.
And in the time that this was occupied as quarters, 3 people have died while living at this home.
So there's 3 direct deaths on ground zero right there that have occurred. Have you ever experienced anything odd inside the home?
I have. The doors upstairs closing, hearing footsteps upstairs, and you think somebody else is in the house, and there's
So you've heard footsteps upstairs?
I've heard footsteps. Wow. I've heard noises.
Do you do history tours around here? Is that what you do?
I do.
Well, I thank you for your time. Is there anything else that you'd like to add? Anything else important that you haven't told me about the place or the area? Now, when I asked this question, Benny began to tell me about how the golf course was constructed. And trust me when I tell you, I could have never guessed where this story was going.
2 soldiers came here to build this golf course. They moved a segment of that cemetery. Though they were ordered to move those grave sites down to where they're located today, they merely moved the headstones and did not move
the
all
bodies
of
would
those
still
graves.
be there.
So
now this is where at? This would be on the part of the golf course?
Right.
We know what hole or what, like...
Well, it's actually in the housing area.
And just like that, our cool historical military haunt just morphed itself into some real-life poltergeist shit.
You left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones!
Creepy, creepy, creepy. Justin pulled some strings through his connections, and here we are inside Quarters 1 with 51 bedrooms spanning 22,000 square feet. This is the second largest federally owned residence next to only the White House. And they say this place is crazy haunted.
So there you go, just a touch of Pan-American Legend and Lore. Once again, it was a lot of fun to make. And for those that are patrons, it will be posted in a couple days on our Patreon. And in the meantime, if you want to check out our Patreon, as always, the link is in the description box below as well. Also, guys, for those of you that use the Twitter/X platform, as I mentioned before, when I was in the hospital, somebody hacked my account, and after they gained control of it, they deleted it. Which really sucks because after talking to the fine folks over there at X, I learned that once your account has been deleted, there is no way to get it back. And I had about 36,000 of you that followed me there, so that's a bummer because, yeah, we had a lot of fun over there at Twitter. But, you know, c'est la vie, it is what it is. I have a new account over on X/Twitter. I guess it's officially X now. I don't know if the case sensitive matters, but I kept it really simple. It's just at Chad Calek, capital C, lowercase HAD, capital C, lowercase ALEK. Again, my new X/Twitter handle is at Chad Calek. I invite you all to follow me there. I used to use it almost daily, so I'm going to start using it a lot. And the next month there, I'm going to be doing some fun giveaways with autograph goodies and all that stuff to kind of welcome people back to following me on that platform, which I would appreciate it if you would give me a follow there. Having said that, let's get to your questions right now. Okay, here we go. Kim says, "Hey Chad, thanks for sharing so much with us. As a fan of Paranormal State, just hearing your insights really demonstrated how much we don't see as viewers. I was wondering what determines how much control the network has over your personal lives." This is a question in relation to Ryan's interview. It really comes down to what's contractual, and it also really comes down to the success that you're having. Some contracts are very, very specific as to what you can or cannot engage in. Now, the obvious things are going to be in any contract, meaning, a network surely doesn't want you out there committing felonies or, being busted for any kind of illegal act that could, take you off the series or could badly damage your character. But things like, a person's sexuality or their party habits or things like that, they'll only really become an issue if success starts happening and then people start worrying about protecting their investment. Then they will try to get more involved. Now, the network will, try to, as much as they can, learn what your habits are and what things you like to do in your spare time and things like that. And if they think that they're going to be detrimental to the series, then they'll, there's a number of things they can do. The last line of defense is obviously if they think it's a legal issue, they can get their legal involved. But usually if there's concerns, executives will absolutely have conference calls where they will address whatever it is that they are concerned with. Of course, when you're working for a company and you're working together, there's a degree of love you get when you play the role of the company man, and you do things kind of how they want you to do it, and they can make things harder and more difficult, if you don't do it. So, or I think Ryan mentioned in there, he changed his haircut and, they got all upset about it. That stuff usually will happen like with the primary lead to a series. The further, your importance to the series goes down, the less and less involved they're going to be. Like they're not going to have the same scrutiny with someone who's a guest on one episode a year versus somebody who appears almost every episode and plays a big part. So yeah, it is an issue and it does happen all the time. So it's a good question though. Okay, next question. Kim from Fort Worth, Texas says, "Hello, Mr. Calek. First off, I want to thank you for sharing such an authentic conversation with Mr. Buell." You're welcome, Kim. Thank you for listening. "At times, I felt like I was listening to a private call more than a podcast. It was great." That's definitely something. There's definitely something special that happens when your personalities collide. I was wondering if you can identify what's at the heart of your chemistry. That's a good question as well. I've always known that Ryan and I work well together, on screen especially. I think that, it's hard. It's hard, to say what makes certain people gel and other, combinations not gel. Because that's a very real thing that you can't really cast for and you can't really direct or teach. There are some combinations in the world that just work, and there's some that are like oil and water. But I think with Ryan and I, if I could guess, look, I think what's apparent when you listen to the podcast is we're very different people, but we've had very similar life experiences. And I think with that comes kind of a common understanding. And I think that certainly aids in the chemistry. I also think there's just that intangible thing that you can't name that just exists between, certain combinations of people. It's the same thing when you investigate. In fact, Ryan used to joke that he and I could go to Walmart and Tide would fly across the shelves, because when we investigated, things always went crazy, it seemed like. But again, there's other tandems that just things don't happen. We used to laugh and call those people paranormal coolers. For some reason, with Joey and I, things would never happen. Never. Even Justin and I had things that happened quite a bit as far as activity goes. Things definitely happened a lot when he and I investigated. But again, for me and Joey, for some reason, it just never really happened. I don't know what that is. There are just some things in the world, through the law of attraction, that just seem to work. So that's the best answer I can give. Okay. Kyle asks, how long does it take to film a season of a paranormal series? I was also fascinated by Ryan's comments about fame and what comes along with it. So from your perspective, what's the best and worst thing about acquiring fame? Well, as far as how long does it take to film a season of a paranormal series, I can only, with Paranormal State, it was long. If we got an order of like 12 or 13 or even 10, I mean, that's, basically 5 days an episode with travel days. So you travel one, film 3, travel another. But there's 2 weeks of prep in between, or before that episode. So, a 10 episode series, look, most of the year is going to be taken up. You're going to have probably, 7 to 8 months is going to be in total time of planning, shooting, editing, all that stuff. And then, when the season comes around, which is usually, once you get that order, it's coming down the pipe. There's also a period of promotion and marketing that goes on too. So it really does take up your whole life, which is, it's wild, because I don't know how people can live in a year, making some of those season 1 salaries. I don't know how that's possible, but, when it comes to fame, I've always had the hardest time considering myself famous in any way until I was in a post office one time, and Nick Broomfield, who to me is a legendary director. He's like one of the reasons why I got into directing documentaries. And I had never met him, had never, even been in the vicinity of him. And then I find myself in line at the post office, and he left the post office and he left his wallet there. And in the time that he left and came back, the post office had closed and they had locked the door. So he was knocking on the door trying to get his wallet back, and I recognized that it was him, and I ran over to the girl working at the post office. I was like, hey, you got to give him his wallet. That's Nick frickin' Broomfield. And nobody there knew who he was. But to me, I was starstruck. I'm like, this dude is the guy. And then I kind of remembered, I guess I should say, what fame is like today. The web makes so many things that are typically niche available to so many people. So it's kind of like if you're into one thing, you can be famous to somebody. Like Nick Broomfield was completely famous to me. But again, he can walk down the street and, maybe people would or wouldn't know him, but he was huge to me. And I've noticed that, when I go out today, I get stopped quite a bit. Mostly it's for Sir No Face. A lot of people have seen that series. And during Paranormal State, it was wild then too. And so it took me a while to kind of grasp what it was, just fame in general. And what I could say the best part about it is just opportunities. You just get to do a lot of cool stuff that you wouldn't otherwise do. And it seems when you meet new people that are interested in what you're doing, there's always something that's very easy to talk about. When you're welcomed into a room and somebody already knows your job, your name, and what's going on, there's benefits to that. And that was fun, of course. And meeting fans that, enjoy your work, of course, that's fun. That's, who wouldn't enjoy that? And in regard to what is the worst thing about fame, I've never been really upset about, online hate. And maybe it's because I don't get a ton, or maybe I get more than I think and I'm just not looking in the right spot. I just think that anybody who works in the public eye, you should expect that you're going to have people that, love what you do and people that hate what you do. I think either way, if somebody cares, you're probably doing something right. But I've also been very fortunate. Justin has joked with me in the past that when it comes to the paranormal, he said I'm the Deftones of the paranormal. And I know what he means by that. The Deftones have, a big audience, but they're not like the Bee Gees. They're not meant for everybody, right? But those who are into the Deftones are diehard Deftones fans. And I'm one of those diehard Deftones fans. So I've been really blessed with the fact that my fans are truly awesome. I think I honestly do have the best fan base in the world. I feel connected to my fan base. They're very good to me. They're very vocal in their support. And I've even seen my fans defend me online to other people who have negative opinions, so I've been really blessed that way. But again, of course, I have, haters as well, too. I would be more concerned if people were just indifferent. So that doesn't really bother me. The stuff that bothers me is more of the interpersonal stuff. Here's an example. I probably shouldn't say who they are. I had a family member that was buying Paranormal State DVDs and faking my signature and selling them on eBay, which I discovered this. And that hurt. That sucked, especially from family of all places. Stuff like that sucks. It was kind of weird when anybody, again, starts to experience a degree of fame, you have this time period where every single person you've ever known from your past contacts you as though you're the best of friends. The same thing with family. Cousins I didn't even know I had got a hold of me when I started doing Paranormal State. And that's kind of weird because you're well, before this happened, you weren't even in my life at all. So I don't know how I'm supposed to treat you, even though you're being nice to me and you're being kind. But I just, it's weird. It's weird when that happens because you don't know how authentic it is. But I think the thing that probably bothered me the most about it, and let me say this too, I think there's way more positives than there are negatives in general. So I think if anybody whines like fame is horrible, and I think it's okay to talk about the downsides of fame because people should know about them. But usually, at least it's been my experience that, again, there's just way more positives than negatives. But the thing that bothered me the most is once you start getting a degree of fame, a lot of people kind of come your way. And if you're someone that's social, like I am, you meet people that you like, and you like, certain personalities, and you think because you don't want anything from them, I would never befriend somebody because I wanted something from them. It's just not in my nature. It's not in my character. I've never been that way. I had a great father who just raised me that, if you want something in life, God gave you two hands. Go out there and work for it and make it happen. So I've never looked at a relationship like I can get this from this person. But I've experienced it where I think I'm just being friends with somebody and then they want something. And then if you don't give it to them, then you're the dick. Or friends that you've had, and I've experienced this too, that you thought were in your close circle, they suddenly feel like they're entitled, to some of the spoils of your hard work. And when you don't give it to them, they turn on you. That sucks. That hurts bad. And, I've experienced that. I can give you one example. On a friend basis, there was a guy that I knew. I'm not going to say his name because I'm not trying to start any shit or out anybody, but there was a guy I knew for a long time that I thought that was just a friend. Every time I went through to San Antonio, Texas, always said hi to him, and always just thought we were cool. And we had back-to-back shows on the Snow Face tour set up. And this is a big venue. And everybody came out in droves. And we were like, holy shit, we could probably do a back-to-back. So we did. Well, the promoter knew this friend. And the promoter was like, hey, you know, when you come into town here, this guy that you know, that we, you know, both know, you know, he said he wanted to help me. And he's going to, like, take care of you guys. And he's going to, you know, help you set up, you know, your post-party meet and greet VIP thing and all this stuff. And I was like, well, hey, I guess if he knows everybody and he's just saying he wants to help, that's cool. Well, like 2 days before we landed, I got this email from this gentleman. And this post-event that he set up, it was supposed to be with VIP ticket buyers. And it was that for a time period, but then we were going to some other bar, and it was to hang out with this guy and his entire team. And I thought, well, okay, you know, that's kind of weird because we should be just focusing on the VIP ticket holders for the post show. But if this is like an after party type thing and this guy just wants me to meet his team, that's cool. You know, I mean, he's a nice guy. I'm sure his team are really cool people. Well, that quickly turned into him calling me on the phone and talking about this pilot they had filmed, and it was so good, and he thought it would go perfect at A&E, and he wanted to know if I could take it in and pitch it. And, you know, I had to explain, I'm not an agent. It would be really weird if I did that at A&E. Plus, I've not seen the show. I don't know what the show is. That's not what I do for a living. I'm not a manager. And it got super strange, and he didn't want to take no for an answer. It was like, well, come on, man. I mean, like, you can do this. Like, they'll listen to you. And long story short, you know, I had to talk to the promoter and go, hey, man, you guys have been great, and we've got like back-to-back sold-out shows, and I'm super excited about this, but I feel really uncomfortable by what's going, you know, because of this other situation that's going on. And the promoter was like horrified. He was like, oh my God, oh, you know, I had no idea. I will take care of it. And it sucks because it permanently like damaged that relationship. I just didn't feel comfortable around this guy, and he didn't seem to really want to have much of a relationship with me after this happened, you know, which I was okay with, but it was unfortunate because it never had to be that way. So I think stuff like that is the stuff that sucks. So, but like I said, most of it, you know, the good really does outweigh the bad. People loving what you do and affording you the life that you have, doing something you love, that's a blessing. So I never want to make it sound like it's just some horrible thing, because ultimately it's not. So, but it's a good question. Sarah Stevens says, hi, Chad. I'm friends with a camera operator that's worked on a bunch. Sorry, it's kind of written weird. I'm friends with the camera operator that's worked on a bunch of television shows. And he's also told me that drugs and alcohol are always available as well. Why do you think that's the case? Because I think that's the case in life. I just don't think it's an industry thing. I think things are just around if you want them to be around. And maybe a little more prevalent in, like, when you're out on a, like when you're on a crew that's filming abroad, you know, or on location, you know, for 8 months out of the year, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. There's a lot of downtime. It's kind of like when you're on a tour and you're driving, you know, in a tour bus for 8 to 10 hours every day, and there's like nowhere to go and nothing to do. That's why you hear a lot of bands, especially younger, you know, younger bands that get involved heavy, you know, in the drug scene. I think when you get older, you kind of appreciate downtime and quiet time, and I think that kind of comes along with maturity. But I just think, yeah, when you're traveling a lot and you're, and you're filming, you can't really like go out and experience a city either. It's like when we were filming Paranormal State, like say we had 3 days off. It's not like, we can just go out and like party on the town like in Penn State, right? You can't just go to the bars or something because it's just going to be, a madhouse, like as far as fanfare and stuff. I mean, by the end of Paranormal State, it was pretty wild. I remember when we were filming I Am 6 Part 2, we literally stopped. Ryan and I just ran in to get a quick coffee and a hot chocolate at Starbucks. There was only 2 or 3 people there. We went in super fast and got out super fast. And within an hour, there was an entire crowd of people outside the house that we were filming at, Laura's house. I mean, a crowd of people. And it was snowing. It was freezing cold. It was like 2 a.m. And there was just a crowd that had amassed that wanted to see what was going on. So it was like reaching those levels of fame, which that got pretty weird. So I think there's a lot of isolated time where, like I say, either you're filming or you're somewhere isolated for long hours. And I think that's the same with any other, crew that's successful that's filming. In that situation, people look for ways to pass the time, whether it's having a beer, smoking a joint, or, doing whatever, that people do. Now, it's certainly not something you have to take part in. And like I said, there's certainly a percentage of, the crew and cast that didn't take part in it. But there was a much bigger percentage that did. And it's been that way on every set I've ever been on, It's just the nature of the business, because I think it's the nature of life. Things are just around if you want them. So, but that's a good question as well. So, Cindy from Lincoln, Nebraska says, I'm so glad you and Ryan are talking again after so many years. If you don't mind me asking, what was the first phone call like after so much time had passed? Trepidatious. I think we were both, again, I keep using the term baby steps. We were both, it's been a long time, so you don't know what's happened in someone's life. And obviously Ryan had a lot. And I had a lot too in a different path, but still. But I think there was, like I said, there was always the want for things to somehow get better, So I think there was a base level of hope, and that that friendship still remained, and I think we both quickly realized that it did. It was there. I mean, I remember one of the first things, he had said to me when we started just talking about, because eventually the conversation led to, what are you doing now? What's going on in the future? And, are you considering doing, things again in the paranormal field? And for me, the whole conversation changed when he was just kind of like, well, listen, whatever it is that I do in the field, the bottom line is, I mean, nothing can come before my sobriety. Like, if that's threatened in any way, that's something I got to walk away from immediately on the spot. And that was good to hear, because he's right. I mean, that's how serious it is. And the second I heard that, I mean, that really kind of changed things for me. And I was like, okay. And then I think I've said before, with the first conversation, I was just shocked by how honest he was being with me. And it was a really, really good call. It was, like I said, a bit shocking to me, but it was a really good call. And I'm glad we had the call. So, okay. Hi, Chad. My name is Dylan, and I've been sober now for just over 3 years. So I wanted to thank you both for being open about your journeys. I know it all too well. I just wanted to know if you believe your work in the paranormal, specifically your work on demonic cases, had anything to do with Ryan's struggles or your recent hospitalization. See, this is always an interesting question, because a lot of people have asked me this. the thing is, when I think of the demonic, and Ryan, I'm sure, would probably answer this differently. I do believe in the manifestation of evil and the abilities of evil on this planet. And I do believe if you go looking for it, it's going to find you. And if you invite it in, it's going to walk right in. So to that degree, look, I would say yes. But, I've never been possessed. So, there was nothing in that sense that's ever driven my actions. But, I've certainly tried to get, close to that dark side when investigating. And perhaps too close at times. So I don't want to say no, but I don't want to blame everything on that either. I don't think anything is just black and white in the world, right? I don't think anytime there's like a tragedy, I don't think you could look at one thing and go, that's what did it. I think humans are very complex individuals. And I think our problems and issues are very complex as well. But I guess what I'm saying is I do think that darkness plays a role in dark times. And that's the best way I can say it. A House from the Harbinger Kingdom deals with this question a lot. So it's something I've spent a lot of time thinking about, researching, documenting. But yeah, I think when darkness befalls you, you should, look at what that means and where it came from and how it happened. And I think some of the answers, are pretty shocking. Yeah, so anyways, that's my answer to that. Again, I'm sure Ryan may have a totally different answer, but at least that's what I think. Okay, some different stuff here. Donna says, holy moly, Chad, I love your singing voice. Thank you, Donna. That means a lot to me. Have you ever thought about doing something like American Idol? No, I have not. I'm a little old, I think, for American Idol. I think there's a cutoff age for that, right? I don't know. Beyond that, I I certainly don't have the patience to stand in line to do something like that, or to ask somebody else, did I do good? That's just that's not in my nature to, require somebody else to tell me if I'm good enough to do something. But that's a compliment that you're asking me that, so thank you. Also, you mentioned a while ago that you're going to release a new record soon. Have you decided on a release date? And can we hear some of your original music? Yes, I've been promising that. I know. I'm sorry, guys. My mind is working way faster than my body, so, the recovery is going amazing, and I'm getting stronger and stronger and stronger every day, and it's all definitely coming back, but, the stamina is just the last thing that's been, a slow build. Yes, I will, release some more of the new music in the coming week, and I will decide on a release date for the new music as well too. But thank you for asking. That means a lot to me. As you guys know, I love music so very much. So, okay, Eric Maven. God, it reminded me of your name. What is that the name in the Crow? No, Eric Draven is the name in the Crow. Eric Maven, pretty cool name though. Of El Paso, Texas, says, hello, Chad. I've had your cover of Fade Into You on repeat this entire last week. That's very cool, man. Such a great take on a classic song. I was wondering if you've ever thought about making a music video for your version. I'd love to see that. It's so funny. You're not the only person. I've got a couple other questions about that as well. Right now, the only thing I'm focusing on editing is Harbingers, and which, goddamn, I know it's taken a long time, guys, but it's looking so good. News on that soon as well. But a music video for Fade Into You. Do people do music videos, the covers? Well, sure, I guess they do, right? Some kind of big time covers have done music videos. I'm not against it. Yeah, it might be something that's just fun to do whenever there's spare time, but we'll see. It's not a bad idea. So we will see. Okay. Gary Jackson from Pensacola, Florida says, given the many layers to the Ryan Garcia story, what is your best guess as to what is going on with him? You know, I've thought about this a lot since posting the episode too. Ultimately, I don't know. But what I would say is, it appears as though something very traumatic happened to him. And he's trying to convey this to the world. And he seems to be a biblical literalist, meaning that, you know, there are some people who are Christians that believe the Bible is kind of like a guideline to life, right? Like you have to believe in Christ as your Savior, but the Bible isn't a literal document. It's basically something that's giving you pieces of history, but also telling you parables. And then there are people who are literalists that believe every word literally in the Bible. Ryan appears to be a literalist. That's difficult because it's hard to listen or to understand somebody who thinks in those terms and speaks in those terms. But it doesn't make him wrong. My overall opinion would be his claims need to be looked into, because if they're real, there's some very serious shit going on there that people need to finally kind of nip it in the bud, like in regards to all this weird Illuminati shit and this Bohemian Grove stuff. And if it's all fake and the guy's having a manic depressive episode, he needs medical help. So regardless, I think the police, the media, and his immediate circle, they all need to thoroughly investigate what he's saying. And I hope they do. I hope they do, because he doesn't strike me as crazy in any way. He doesn't strike me as drugged out in any way. And I've seen all these different narratives arrive. First he was crazy, then he was drugged out. Now they're saying he's a gambling addict. It's like, and that only happened once he, publicly released his drug test that showed he wasn't on coke and all these other things they're saying. So, definitely seems to be people working against him getting his story out. So, I hope people look into it for sure. Having said that, guys, that is it for this Q&A. Once again, I hope you guys come out to the Warren Seeker of the Supernatural Con, September 27th through the 29th. See Mr. Buell and I hop on stage and talk shop and answer your questions. Once again, the link is in the description below if you want to get tickets. It's going to be an exciting event. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, my friends, and I will be back tomorrow with more. All the best.